This is the Knock&Talk show, an Alio first responder veteran podcast, sharing some comic relief from the street.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Knock&Talk show. I, of course, am your host, Patrick Faulkner, and this is episode number 19. Today we have guest Lindsay Perry with us, a longtime friend of mine, former law enforcement officer, and now doing a whole lot more with herself. Lindsay, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you. We have a pretty long history together, going back to the early 2000s. And I'm really interested in learning more about what it is that you're doing since you've left out of law enforcement. But before we get into that, why don't you introduce yourself to the kiddos out there and sort of give your elevator speech?
Well, I don't have much of an elevator speech other than my name is Lindsay Perry, and I am a former law enforcement officer. I spent 15 years in law enforcement, good portion of that working with you.
For better or for worse?
And then some, probably.
And then some, yeah.
And now I've been out of law enforcement since about 2011, but I stay connected by doing peer support.
Okay. And we're definitely going to dive into that in a little bit. But you migrated, I guess it's the proper term, from up north to the Atlanta metro area. How did you get into policing here in metro Atlanta from New York?
So I was actually in an academy class in New York State, and up there everything is civil service, so you have to pay to put yourself through, and you're not guaranteed a job when you come out. Gwinnett County came up there, and they were recruiting a bunch of regional academies.
Okay.
They were held at most local colleges, like the community colleges. And they had hit Buffalo area, Erie County, Niagara County, and they had come down to my county, which was Chautauqua County. And we were getting ready, pretty close to graduating. And they just came, and our academy let them come in and introduce themselves and, let everyone fill out applications. And they actually did testing, the initial testing up there in Buffalo for all of us.
Okay.
So I basically started the process with them before I graduated the academy in New York. But I also went through, and I had been applying at agencies up there as well. It just so happened that Gwinnett showed interest, and I just kept through the process with them. I ended up moving down here prior to getting a job offer so I could be closer for testing.
Wow. Okay.
Thinking that it was going to help me get hired faster,
Mm-hmm.
but it actually pushed me to the back because now I'm local. Yeah, so they were rushing to get all those people that were up north still down here. But now that I was down here, I was no longer in that group.
Got it. Okay. But you completed the academy in New York.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
I was state certified in New York State also.
Okay. Half of my academy class, I don't want to say half, a third of my academy class was also from New York. The other almost third was from Ohio, and then the rest of us were currently living in Metro Atlanta. Those that were coming down from both Ohio and New York said the opportunities up there were not so great, and that there weren't enough jobs as there were applicants. Is that what you were facing as well?
Yes, and everything, there was other certain criteria. If you were a minority or female, it bumped you up a little bit on the list, regardless of where you scored. And if you didn't get a 90 or above, maybe even higher, on the civil service test, you weren't going to get a job.
Wow.
You might get a part-time job, but you weren't going to get a full-time job.
Okay. So you decided better opportunity down south, and What time of the year did you come down to
So
Atlanta?
I actually moved down here April 1st, 1998.
Wow. Okay.
I've moved a couple different times on April 1st.
Mm.
Maybe it's a full thing. I don't know. But
It could be, I guess.
But yeah, April 1st, 1998, I moved down here. Actually, just before I left, I got a job offer from the sheriff's department for a part-time position and turned them down because I said I was already leaving. I mean, I had come down, found a place to live and a job, so I was gone. I moved down. At that time, I was 22 years old, 21 years old. I waited tables and worked in retail to make ends meet and continued the testing process, which lasted another maybe 6 months. I think it was about November that I got a conditional job offer from the agency here, as well as within a couple days of that, I got a job offer from the New York State Police
Oh,
asking me if I wanted to come back to New York and work there. And I said, thank you, but no, thank you. I don't want to be working out on, the middle of the Catskills in the wintertime and far away from home. So,
yeah. So you come down in April, which is springtime,
mhm,
like an actual spring,
yeah.
not like the first thaw in New York. Was there any culture shock coming down?
I think probably the biggest culture shock for me was I was coming from a very small town and I came
Mm.
into this big city. I always growing up, I always pictured myself in a big city. I would, even though I was a country girl, I knew that deep down I was really a city girl.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it opened my eyes up to a lot of different things, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different things you just didn't see where I grew up. You know, you didn't see prostitutes walking the street, didn't see drug dealers hanging out on the streets up there. You saw a lot of cows,
A lot of cows.
a lot of cows.
Okay.
Yeah.
In November, when you got your conditional job offer, how long before your academy started?
January.
Okay.
I had actually, so they actually brought me on early before my academy started. And I was assigned down to West Side, just did administrative stuff
Okay.
until my academy started. I'm pretty sure that it was November. Actually, uh, maybe October, because my first exposure to a officer-involved shooting was Wimberley shooting.
Oh, okay.
And it was at the process that I was coming on. So that was, um, something that kind of connected with me because it was the county that I was getting ready to go to work for. And then I go to work there and, we all drove down Wimberley Way.
Right.
And then I became really good friends with people he was friends with, so it was that was my first exposure to a line of duty death.
Okay. May have been September.
It was sometime in the fall.
Yeah. Matt Warren, who's a
Mhm.
mutual friend of ours, was a guest. I think he was guest number 2, and it was like in August, and it was the anniversary of Wimberley's death. So it may have been August, but
It was
never.
fall
Okay.
sometime. Yeah.
How many females were in your academy?
I think there was 3 of us.
Okay.
One ended up getting recycled. Um, I think for an injury.
Okay.
No, there was 4. So there ended up being 3 of us total graduating.
Okay. We're gonna try to get into some funny stories as we're going through memory lane here, or going down memory lane. Anything come to mind in the academy? So you've already completed one academy
Mhm.
up in New York. Did you see any major differences that were somewhat maybe comical from New York versus down south in Metro Atlanta?
Everybody talked funny.
Of course we did.
I learned a lot of new language that I never knew existed.
Okay.
You know, that was one thing moving down here. I never heard the word restriction before.
Oh.
Yeah, we were always grounded.
Oh.
And when I came down here and people started talking about, you know, their kids being put on restriction, I'm like, what the hell is restriction? That and dipping.
Dipping.
I didn't know what dipping was.
Okay.
Till I came to the South and realized everybody down here dips. Or did.
Or did. Yeah. With the can circle in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the academy, you know, there was, I think it was 16 weeks long at the time, right? Does that sound right?
Maybe.
Anything stand out in the academy? Being one of 4 females, and I assume at least half of your class was from New York.
No.
Really?
No. I think I was the only one from Buffalo in my academy because I moved down here.
Oh.
I didn't go through with everybody from Buffalo. Everyone that I went through was, I'm pretty sure, from Georgia.
Okay. Wow, that must have been interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, to say the least.
To say the least. Okay. Anything happen on the mats during DT?
You know, it's funny. We were talking about this last night. I had dinner with our defensive tactics instructor last night. And I still curse him to this day for pairing me with the largest individual in the academy who stood about probably 6'4".
Okay.
And probably 300 pounds at the time. He's not anymore, but yeah, and expected me to take this guy to the mat. I guess I'm about 5'8"-ish, but in the academy, I was probably 120, 125 pounds soaking wet, you know? So yeah, they thought that was kind of funny, but I've always been, you know, a little bit of a smart ass.
Never knew it.
No, it's gotten better.
Has it?
Yeah.
Gosh. We'll see.
But I was determined that I was not going to let them make an ass of me. I was not going to let them win, you know, this little joke that they were trying to play or whatever. And he put me in a headlock. And at the time, you know, being relatively in shape and weighing much less, I was also a lot more flexible. And I was able to maneuver my body well enough to be able to hit him with my knee in the common peroneal and dropped him like that. And everybody was like, okay, maybe we better not play games with her anymore. It worked out that it worked out that way, right? Because fortunately it worked out for me.
Yeah, not so much for him, but for you, yes. What about EVOC?
EVOC was pretty fun. I like to drive, so I like to drive fast. My ticket record shows that.
Does it?
Yeah.
I used to drive fast. Now my wife says I drive like a grandpa.
Yeah, my daughter reminds me all the time. It's okay, Mom. You're a trained driver.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
but just be careful you don't get any more speeding tickets.
See, good advice. Good
From
advice.
my backseat
From
driver.
from your back seat.
So we did EVOC down at Gypstick.
Okay.
We were still doing it down there when I went through the academy. I don't know what your academy did.
We did it there too.
Okay. And I had, it was actually kind of humorous. One of the guys in the academy I got partnered up with, and he brought a video camera with him. I would still love to get my hands on that video because he taped me doing the high-speed driving and the skid pad and stuff like that. So I don't know whatever happened to it. I never did see it. I'm sure it was relatively entertaining, though.
I'm sure it was. Well, obviously it was. I mean, we all stood on the side, right, and got to watch as other people took turns. Did you wreck out on the big track?
I don't think I ever did.
I didn't either. I saw a lot of wreck outs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those that aren't in Georgia law enforcement, there's a state academy called GIPSTIC, or the Georgia Peace Officers Training Center, something like that. And that's where most of EVOC was done in the 90s and early 2000s when we were there. The big track was just, it was like a racetrack. It was like an Indy streetcar track, lefts, rights, and there was a high area, come up, and then you had to come back down and hit the apex, and not a lot of people were able to stay in that as they went back out the
It
other
was
side.
probably as close to driving on a real racetrack that you could get without being on a real racetrack.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed EVOC as well. At graduation, what did that feel like to have now completed your second academy and standing on the front steps of headquarters and getting your picture taken?
I don't know if I really remember that moment. I actually was under a good bit of stress and scrutiny, being, I'll call myself a very girly female. Makeup, lipstick, most of the time, my hair done, and that just wasn't well received in the environment at the time. So I think that when I graduated, I was more worried about FTO than I was really in the whole graduation part of it.
Okay. All right. So what was, where did you do your first field training?
So I think my first part was done at Southside.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember how they broke it up back then. What did we do? 8 weeks?
Yeah, it was, they tried to break it up 4 weeks and then 4 weeks at a different precinct.
Okay. So I did 4 weeks down at Southside.
Okay.
Yep. Got into my first lawsuit down there at Southside.
Way to start things off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hated it. I was assigned to a former Marine. The intention was to wash me out because they didn't think that I could handle being a cop. So, yeah, I hated Southside, and I never went back after we got off FTO. I stayed as far away from there as I possibly could. My second 4 weeks I did in Duluth.
Okay.
Central.
Okay. Yeah. I never went to Southside. When I was in the burglar unit, that was the area of the county that I was given to the burglary investigations, but I never worked patrol down in Southside. I didn't want to be anywhere near there either.
No, it was a nightmare to get around during the daytime. At night there was nothing going on most of the time down there. Back then, there was nothing going on down there. It just wasn't a fun place to work.
No, but Central, on the other hand, had lots of things going on, no matter what time of the day. What sort of stuff did you get into there at Central?
So I think I was off FTO. I just gotten off FTO, and it might have been my first night on my own. And we just got done with roll call. I was working midnights, so it was 10:30, quarter to 11, and I start heading down Satellite Boulevard. At the time, I don't remember the name. There's a little side street near the Quick Trip right there. There's a Quick Trip, and it goes back into a shopping center. And there was a restaurant right in that area somewhere too, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And there's still a lot of traffic out. I think it was a Friday or Saturday night. So you've got people going to dinner, going out, or coming home from dinner. You know what I mean? There's a lot of traffic. And off the corner of my eye, I catch this guy running through this parking lot restaurant. but he was butt ass naked.
Oh, gosh.
And all I look over is I see this car next to me, and I see this kid in the car. I'm like, oh, shit. So I stop. I turn my blue lights on. He's right in front of me, and he gets that deer in the headlight look. He's like, oh, shit. Doesn't realize that he's naked, though. He was so messed up. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just walking. I'm like, where are your clothes? What do you mean, where are my clothes? At that point, it's like, I'm not even going to have a conversation with this guy. I opened up the back of my car, put handcuffs on him, and threw him in. Because here's all these people out here seeing this man
and all of his glory.
All of it. Yes. And I did try to find his clothes before I took him to jail. I'm like, where have you been? You know, and he was trying to explain to me where he'd been and couldn't figure out where he'd been, didn't know where his clothes were, didn't realize he didn't have his clothes on. So there wasn't a whole lot that I could do other than take him to jail as he was. So yeah, that was my very first experience off FTO on my own. And that kind of set the stage for, you know, when I came into the SO with somebody.
Right.
You know, what are you bringing us now?
Right. Oh, yeah. So I imagine pulling him out of the car in the Sally Port must have gotten a little bit of attention there as well.
Oh, I didn't have to do it. Yeah, no. When I got up there, I let them know when I was calling in that I had an individual they'd need to assist when they need to bring some clothes.
Oh, good.
I don't know that they put the clothes on him in the Sally Port, though. I think they took him into the jail first, and then, you know,
helped him out.
Yeah.
Oh, good for them. You know, the stories on the street, especially midnights and evening watch, the second shift, they're filled with those kinds of things. That's when you see all of the funny thing. I mean, you just can't make that kind of stuff up, right? So what else do you recall? Because you spent a while on midnights, because you were still, I believe, on morning watch when I came through the next year.
So I did some time on evening watch.
Okay.
I don't remember how long, but I did do some time on evening watch. I kind of went back and forth between the two shifts. Back then, there was such a demand to be on certain shifts that once you were there for like 2 rotations or something, you'd get booted to another shift if somebody else with more seniority wanted to come there or whatever. Right. So I did go to evening watch for a while. So I graduated in July from the academy, went through FTO. So roughly, let's say July, August, sometime September, early October was when we were by ourselves.
Okay.
And it was right about that time. I had a lot of firsts in my first 6 months. Had my first homicide. So I always was very fortunate, I guess you'd say, to be close to the shit calls. Yeah, I don't know why it always ended up that way, but if I wasn't close, then it came to me. You know,
you were the magnet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very similar for me. I could take a stranded motorist on the side of the road and end up being 3 missing juveniles, a kilo of cocaine in the back, and somebody was wanted, all because I was trying to help them out on the side of the road.
Yeah, I had a stranded motorist on the side of the road, midnight shift, in the first lane, parked, sitting there waiting for a tractor trailer to hit her so she could commit suicide.
Wow.
I got there before anything could happen, but yeah, she had herself and her dog in the car, and she was just waiting for a tractor trailer to come down the road.
Wow.
It was a pretty interesting story too. I don't know if I should share all that.
I mean, we can move on, but wow. I mean, I had my fair share of people who have made some weird attempts, like setting up 2 circular saws on sawhorse and try to run through it.
That's interesting.
Where it was neck level, and he didn't get the spacing right. It just cut the sides. there. But yeah, people come up with some interesting things.
Mm-hmm. Sure do.
Yeah. So moving back to levity. um, any car chases? We weren't allowed to chase
No.
officially.
Right.
Anything off the books that you're allowed to talk about?
What's the statute of limitations in Georgia?
3 years. You're well surpassed. Well surpassed. In fact, all the
And I
supervisors
can't get disciplined anymore.
You can't. No, they've all retired anyway.
Yeah, I mean, several. I mean, some that there was supervision involved, you know. I mean, when I went down to West Side Precinct, we had a lot of things happen down there that we could chase for, you know.
Yeah.
And there was some nights we'd end up in the middle of DeKalb County, or all over Gwinnett. I mean, you never knew. I remember we had one in Crescent Drive. When you come onto Crescent, and it used to be a Days Inn right there along the interstate, and it had that really sharp curve. Yeah, I think we had chased him down South Norcross Tucker, and he cut over, which would have been Graves Road, I guess.
It sounds right.
And then come back up. And when he was coming back up, he didn't slow down when he hit that curb or that curve in the road. And he ended up going airborne and into the parking lot. I think he was all right, though. But it was crazy, the things that people do. To get away from the police.
To get away. Yeah. You're going to end up just going to jail tired, naked, or, not as happy as you thought you were going to be.
Just embarrassed because the police won.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, so speaking of, we work Central. Did you work Central days at all?
I think I did a very short time on FTO, but I try to stay away from day watch. I wasn't that was where a lot of the veteran officers were that, no, I didn't.
You can
there was
say
a lot
you
of
can
administration around too.
Retired on duty. You can say it.
Yeah, and they liked the rookies to come to day watch.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I don't think I really did ever work days.
Okay.
It was always evenings, and then the majority of it was morning watch.
Gwinnett Place Mall was there in Central.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you had to pick up shoplifters from either Penny's or Parisians or Macy's. Anything spark a memory and something funny coming out of any of those shoplifters from Gwinnett Place Mall?
Not necessarily from the shoplifters, but
or perhaps the LP guys.
No, I did have a shoplifting case once, though, that I had to, I think it was a bond hearing that I had gone to. And I had a couple years on the road at this time. I probably was a little bit more, I thought I was smarter than I was, but my mouth was way more smarter. And I had, it was a pretty new defense attorney that was questioning me during this bond hearing. Standard shoplifting case. They had lined the box. It was a shoe box with tinfoil, so it wouldn't set off the alarms going out. And loss prevention ended up catching them. I think we got into a foot chase with them too, and ended up getting them with the box and everything else and arresting them. And when it came time for the bond hearing, I'd gone over everything with the ADA and no big deal. And he started to question me. I think the ADA questioned me first about the box setup with the tinfoil and stuff like that. And it was something we'd seen a couple times where they thought that the tinfoil would create a barrier to not set off those alarms at the doors. And so this defense attorney decides that he's going to try to question me about the scientific evidence behind the tinfoil. Wanting to know what scientific evidence I had that would prove that that would, not make the alarms go off, which it really didn't matter whether the alarms went off or not. Point was, he left with it,
Right.
And I told him, I said, no, I'm sorry. I'm not a scientist. I can't answer that question. And when we had bond hearings, there was people from neighboring agencies in there, SO in there, us in there. And the judge had to kind of hit his gavel a little bit and get everybody to be quiet because they were laughing about what I had said and the look on his face because he realized he was an idiot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That happened quite a bit, especially with new attorneys.
Yeah.
And I had one where an attorney asked me, is it possible that somebody other than my client did this? And I won't go into the details. It was a molestation rape case, but with DNA evidence. And I said, about as possible as you being on the next shuttle ride. And the judge had to hit the gavel there because everybody started laughing. And yeah, I've paid for that a couple of times afterwards, though, because he was a good attorney and he had me in the hot seat for a while afterwards on purpose to make up for that. But
yeah, you got unlucky. You got someone who got the paybacks on you. This attorney, anytime after that he came in and I was the arresting officer, he immediately was done. Like he didn't even get me up there to testify.
Nice.
I think I scared him.
You might have. I'm not going to lie. You were pretty scary back then. I mean, you could be. So that was new. You were like a year plus ahead of me. And I stayed over. You were on morning watch and I stayed over to help because you guys were like missing 2 people.
Yeah, we ran short quite often back then.
Yeah. So I stayed over one time and the first time I did, I questioned whether I wanted to or not if you were on shift. You may not remember this, but there was an accident with injuries, an overturned car. And you got the call and I was the first one on scene. And so I was, trying to triage, make sure everybody's okay. And you showed up and you're like, where are my driver's licenses? Where are my insurance cards? What the hell have you been doing? And I was like, oh my God, I'm 3 months off of FTO and I'm staying over to help. And it was a little more dramatic than what I just shared. It was a little scary. So anyway.
Well, it was probably because I don't remember the accident, but was it bad enough that I was going to have to go to the hospital if I didn't have this information?
That I don't remember.
I probably was trying to get out of having to go to the hospital, try to get this information from those people. I mean, it was morning watch. There was better things happening.
There were better things. You're right. Yes. Yeah. So, any foot chase that you can remember?
Oh,
because these are the stories everybody wants to hear, right?
Yeah. So there were several different ones throughout, but one that stands out to me the most is this was over off 29 somewhere. It was a new subdivision. We figured it was kids because they were getting into these buildings under construction and doing a lot of damage. We'd done surveillance over there. I think I was on CRT at the time.
Okay.
We'd done surveillance over there and, sat out there waiting for them to come in. There was like a little trailer park kind of behind there that we'd go park in where we could see through the fence line and be able to watch. And we were out there one night and nothing happened. Basically, we were done. The shift was done. We went home and then they came in after and did more damage. So then we decided we were going to amp up what we were doing out there. And I think we were getting ready to head back out there and set up for the night. And I just happened to go over there. I thought, I'm going to go over and be nosy for a couple minutes and just kind of see. I'll wait on everybody else, you know. And as soon as I pull in, here's these kids walking down the road. It's kind of, you come in and it kind of ute around a little bit. And it was the kids that we were looking for, because we had, I'm pretty sure that we had relatively ID'd them. We were just trying to actually catch them in the act.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, I hadn't gone out on the radio, obviously, because I was just going over there to check things out. And I knew, you know, we were going to sit up later. And they see me and they take off running. I'm like, well, I kind of got to run after this now. So I took my car down as far as I could and got out and started chasing them as I'm trying to get out onto the radio and, let everybody know where I'm at. I think we ended up catching one, but that was a night with K9 and Air One and all that stuff too, just because I had to go be a little nosy first. There's another good one. It was up here in Central. Was it the Ford dealership that we used to work an off-duty job at?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Someone ended up being a very good friend of mine. This was our actual first ever meeting. She puts out a stolen vehicle in progress from the dealership that she's working off-duty job at. And I happen to be coming up Satellite. So I'm telling her, give me a description. I'm coming up now. And I was very close to the Ford dealer. Well, he comes out right in front of me. I'm like, okay, well, here we go. So go up Satellite, cross over Old Norcross. And I've got my lights and siren on at this point because I knew it was the vehicle. And I don't know if it's still there or not, but right up the top, there was like some kind of windshield place or a glass place or
yes.
something automotive type place.
Yeah.
And they had the front kind of barricaded off with just like a chain link and like a loop or something. And kind of came in and there was nowhere to go. It was like just parking lot. And then it kind of dropped off into an embankment in a field right across from the precinct. So
that's right.
Yeah. I'm sure that there's something there now, but at the time there wasn't anything there. So I chased him into the parking lot. I'd stopped. He'd gone through the fence. It had gone up over the car. I stopped because I wasn't going to mess my car up.
Sure.
Because you didn't want to be in a spare car.
No.
And so I started chasing the car through the parking lot. I knew he wasn't going far because the parking lot ended.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he started to realize that the parking lot ended. So he decides he's going to try to jump out of the moving vehicle and gets run over by the car.
Oh.
But he gets up and he takes off kind of sideways over towards the road as the car goes up over the curb and down the embankment. So I'm chasing him down the embankment, across the road towards Central, towards that apartment complex that was right there, and giving a description and everything. And then all of a sudden I have this other car pull up into the like the center turn lane. So I'm trying to give information about that because I thought it was the car that dropped him off, trying to pick him up and take off with him.
Right.
No, it ended up being the off-duty narcotics officer. And her and I chased him across the road and ended up tackling him across the road, and he went to jail.
Tired.
And I think he had a broken arm.
Oh, from being run over.
Yeah. Yep. That was a pretty interesting situation.
Yeah. And those things happen so fast.
Oh yeah.
While you're doing the chase, it seems like forever. Like you're never going to catch the guy, and then everything's fine. Bad guy's in jail, and now you're like, you told that story in like 30 seconds, and it was probably like 12 minutes long.
Felt like it.
Yeah.
Well, then you have the shit of, damn, this dude just ran over himself. And like I witnessed that.
Right. Yeah. Attention veteran businesses. Do you want an easy way to be certified as a veteran-owned business? Do you want a better way to show it off in the same hard-charging fashion as our old unit badges? Do you want an easier way to be found? Get business write-ups, interviews, social media promotion, and more? avboa.net has your six. Get access to over 20 hard-charging digital badges for web and social media shares that shows you're a certified veteran-owned business. You've earned it. Show it off. Visit avboa.net. Use code KNOCK6, that's KNOCKSIX. Get your digital badge today. So, any other crazy things that you witnessed, maybe not personally involved in, but that you saw, like someone running over themselves?
I'm sure there's all kinds of things. Something that comes to mind. I want to say that this is in Central again. You might even have been working there then. We were chasing this Corvette around Pleasant Hill Road one night. I think original call was he'd been in a bar causing problems or whatever. They gave a description, and it was a red Corvette. I mean, not too many of them out at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. And it was fall because the Walmart that was right there on Pleasant Hill near Breckenridge had Christmas trees out on that side road. And we'd find him, and then we'd lose him, and then we'd find him, and then we lose him. And we kind of given up because who's going to outrun a Corvette, right?
Not in our Luminous.
No. So next call I get is a 33 vehicle, a vehicle on fire over near the Walmart. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to go over here now. I was right there. So I come around the corner, and everything's an orange glow because all those dry Christmas trees were right there. And it's literally probably 30 feet on fire. And when I get over there, I'm like, damn, what, what, somebody threw their cigarette out? What caused this big fire? Well, then I realize I've got black marks on the roadway going over in towards that area. And then I start seeing little pieces and parts here and there. It was the red Corvette. He'd come around that corner and lost control, and he must have flipped, and the vehicle caught on fire.
Oh.
And it just landed in that area with all the, nice timber to accelerate that fire a little bit. Yeah,
it really was a little red Corvette.
Yeah. It was charred by that time, but so we had witnesses saying, oh, the driver ran. Then we witnesses saying I never saw the driver, and nobody knew what was going on. FD gets there, they put the fire out, and I'm sitting there talking to one of our particular lieutenants. And I said, he's like, so what do you think? Do you think he ran? And just something came over me, and I'm like, I had this stench in the air. And I'm like, no, I don't think he ran. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I don't think he ran. I said, do you smell that? He's like, no, what are you talking about? So I went to the FD guys, and I said, can you guys get the lights over here and light this up a little bit? Because you know better than I do what a burned body smells like. Do you smell that? Because I'd never smelled it, but for whatever reason, I knew what it was. Sure enough, they brought the lights over and shined it on the scene, and there he was. Yeah, crispy critter.
Crispy critter. Wow. Yeah, burnt flesh has an odor that just sort of burns into your brain. You never, once you smell it that first time.
Well, I was amazed that I identified that that's what it was, because I'd never smelled anything like that before. But it's like, I guess if you have a basic understanding of what burned meat smells like, or maybe 3-week-old in the 100-degree weather burned meat smells like, then you probably have a pretty good idea of that. Yeah, that was an interesting one too.
Yes, that is. How many years you spend on patrol before going to CID the first time?
Probably only 3. It wasn't long. Not
Okay.
long at all. Yeah, I don't think that I was. It was probably about 2002, 2003 when I went up there for the first time. Went up
Okay.
to the burglary unit.
And we worked together there.
Yeah.
With my least favorite supervisor. He has since passed, so I won't speak ill of him, but
You can tell me later.
okay, I'll tell you later. Were you involved in any investigation that also had one of the alphabet soups in it? Like, were you part of the? I don't think you were. The Romanian burglary ring that we had going on, stealing at all the construction sites.
No, I
No?
don't think so.
Okay.
No, the one that stands out to me, and I don't know if you were working this with me or not, but we had a bunch of kids on at Southside that were doing burglaries, and we had a bunch of guns stolen, and we had information on who our suspects were, got a search warrant, and went over to serve the search warrant. Come to find out, the kid's mom was crime scene tech.
That's right.
Were you working that with me?
I wasn't working it with you as like your partner on that, but the unit got involved, and I remember helping out either with like evidence.
So we went. I'd been given information. I'd interviewed one kid, and he kind of told me what was going on, and I was given information that the guns were in, with the air conditioning units. You've got the receiver up at the top by the ceiling, and then you've got your vents or whatever down below sometimes. But the kid told me, like, yeah, the guns are in the big square receiver inside his bedroom. So when we did the search warrant, we knew exactly where we were going, and ended up going in there, finding the guns, and I had a little conversation with the kid. He was a gang member. Had a conversation with him, and he's, seemed like a decent kid caught up with the wrong people. Telling me, yeah, I'll talk to you, I'll talk to you and tell you what's going on. So we took him back up to headquarters and did an interview with him. And I still have this interview tape. It was the craziest interview I think that I have ever done in my life. So when we would take somebody in there, we'd put them in the room and go start the videotape and let them sit there for a while to see if they're going to talk to themselves or, because a lot of times people will start to, say a prayer or
perhaps the coveted sudden utterance.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think he was 17 or 18 years old because I didn't go through any juvenile stuff with him. And I put him in there. And I mean, he was polite, respectful, I couldn't believe that this kid was caught up with these gangbangers and that he actually was running with those kind of people. Like, he was kind of he would be that kid that something would end up happening to him because he was with the wrong crowd.
Right.
So I went in and started talking to him a little bit, and he started giving me a little bit of information. And for whatever reason, I stepped back out. There was something that pulled me back out or whatever. And the guys are like, come here, you got to see this. So I went back into the video room, and this kid is having a conversation with himself, going into 2 different voice sounds. The voice I'd been hearing, the nice, polite kid. And then he literally would look over here off his shoulder, and his voice would change. And it'd be like, motherfucker, what are you doing? Why are you telling the cops all this information? And, you're going to get your ass kicked and all this other stuff. And then he'd go back and he'd be like, you know, this isn't what I should be doing. I'm not a bad kid and all that stuff. Like he had multiple personalities, like
Wow.
legit had multiple personalities. And he had his good angel
Yeah.
and the devil.
Wow.
And he literally was turning and talking to each one. So that was a relatively interesting interview. Now that I think about that, I need to find that video and take a look at that again.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he never did get out of the gang scene after that. And I'm pretty sure he's sitting in prison for homicide. Yeah.
Rough.
Too bad.
Yeah. I guess the devil side won.
It apparently was much stronger, yes.
Yeah. How long did you spend in CID?
I think the first time I was up there, it was maybe a year.
Okay.
I was a street cop. I loved doing investigations, but like you didn't have that adrenaline up there.
No, very, very seldom.
Yeah.
Very seldom. I say that uniform is the best kept secret in law enforcement. You do your 8 hours or your 12 hours, and it's adrenaline, and then you go home. You don't have investigators' reports waiting for you. You don't have to worry about getting the synopsis sent out or any of that other administrative stuff that comes along with the tie. And
your day's tied up at the end and you go on to a new one the next.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you. I did 2.5 years in CID total, and I like the uniform better.
Yeah, I think I did about 1.5 years the second time up there too. In special victims.
Yeah, I did 1.5 years in there as well.
Yeah.
That was full of interesting stories.
Oh, for sure.
None of which are, PG or even soft R.
No, and it's one of those areas that you see and you hear just the worst of people, it's a hard place to be.
It is. Yeah. To spend much time in there anyway. And I will say that I got to give it to Stabler and Benson. Being able to solve those crimes in an hour to include commercials. I never knew how they did that. Never figured that part out.
Yeah. It's kind of like all cop shows though, right?
Yeah.
Everything gets done in an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unless it's a season ender and you get 2 hours for that.
And cliffhanger.
And the cliffhanger. Yes. All right. So, speaking of, do you have a favorite cop show?
No, I don't think so. I'm not much of a TV person. I think that back when like the reality TV cop shows, I liked to watch those. Our agency was on Cops for a while, so it was kind of fun to see them filming with us and then actually be able to go back and watch what they filmed. But no, I wouldn't say. I always like the female lead role cop shows, the tough girl type, the ones that were respected for being the tough girl type.
Right. Yeah. So trying to think, so Charlie's Angels, going back that far, did you watch that as a kid?
No. Who were the angels in that? What were their names? Farrah Fawcett was one, right?
Yeah, I think. And then there was the brunette, and then the one with black hair. And that's
you don't know what their real names are.
There was Charlie, and it started with a B. I remember the dudes.
Bosley.
Bosley. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, but I don't remember Oh, I just had it. The blackhead. I got nothing. I remember watching the show, but
Yeah. No, I mean, I grew up with my dad watching those type shows, Knight Rider and Magnum
yes.
PI, and
Oh yeah. So okay. So Magnum.
Mhm.
You have a favorite character on Magnum?
No, I don't.
No.
No, and most people would probably say, "Oh, Tom Selleck for sure." I got tired of hearing my mother say that. No,
No.
no.
No. Higgins was my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was sort of the the gel that kept the storyline going.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I really didn't have a favorite. I'm not much of a TV person. I don't gravitate towards the characters. You know. Um, I do remember watching a lot of cop shows growing up. The old time cop shows.
Oh, Adam 12 and Hawaiian 5-0, the original.
Hmm.
Yeah, we watched those. I think I don't remember them as much as the '80s. So Miami Vice and
Yeah, I think more so the eight. Oh yeah, Miami Vice. Yeah, always wondered, is that really what it's like in Miami?
or in the Vice unit.
Yeah, right. Just think of like a greasy Guido dude walking around with those bad suits, that big ass chain, and just all that.
Chest hair hanging out. Oh, okay. So not a chest hair
No,
fan. Okay.
I'm not saying that. Just like the whole image just is
Not for you.
No.
Okay. All right. All right. Fair enough. So what did you do off duty then?
Uh, I didn't spend a lot of time off duty. Part-time jobs.
No.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I did not do a lot off duty. I didn't really have hobbies, and I hung out with friends here and there, but like how you did mountain biking for a while, right? I didn't ever pick up on anything like that.
You had a Jeep?
Yeah,
And
that was
jet
later. And a
jet
jet ski.
skis?
Yeah, that was later though.
Okay.
Yeah. That was actually right before 2009. I had
Mhm.
those when I was involved in my incident. So,
Is this a good segue? Because I know you wanted to talk also about some serious subject matters, and that goes hand in hand with what you're actually doing in town this week, because you have moved back to New York,
yes.
but you are in town here in Atlanta this week for a symposium. Is this a good segue to get into that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll let you take the story wherever you want to start it, and sort of just pass the mic.
Okay. Well, this is where it gets not humorous anymore.
That's right.
So in July 2009, I was involved in a double fatal shooting where I had to shoot and kill 2 people. I'm not going to go into a ton about the story, so to speak, because of what I'm here for. It ties in more to what I went through afterwards. So things kind of snowballed very quickly, out of control for me. I had PTSD symptoms very early on, but I didn't know that that's what it was. I had requested some help and was kind of left out on my own to find my own help. When somebody's in that situation where they're dealing with paranoia, severe insomnia, just not in their right mind, the last thing that they're going to do is go find their own help. I mean, where do you go? Where do you start? Nobody knows.
Not the yellow pages?
No. I think at that point, yellow pages were kind of gone. I don't know. Maybe Google wasn't around yet.
I don't think it was.
No. So I ended up struggling for a very, very long time with post-traumatic stress symptoms, diagnosed post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, to the point where in 2011, I ended up leaving law enforcement altogether, which was good and was bad kind of in both respects, I guess. It was good because I was no longer in that environment, the stress of the environment, and the concern of something else happening was no longer there. But it kind of brought on a whole new beast for me because I've been essentially in law enforcement since I was 21 years old. And at this point, I didn't know what else to do. I mean, unfortunately, when you go into that career path that kind of starts to become your identity, like when we were talking about what did I do off duty? I didn't do anything. Like I was working, most of the time. And so I had a severe identity crisis, didn't know who I was, what I was going to do next. Like, I mean, I'd always been, my whole adult life, I was Lindsay and I was an officer. And now that I no longer had that title, I guess you'd say, it's like, well, what is my next title supposed to be? So I ended up in a very dark place for a very long time, suffering with severe PTSD. I had a couple suicide attempts because it was that bad. I just wanted everything to end. I wanted to be normal again. I wanted to feel right again, and that wasn't happening. I was just over it. And then when my daughter came along, it was that wasn't an option anymore. It became an option for not a long time anyway, but I didn't get any help. I still was dealing with the depression and the anxiety. And now I've got this child who's going through normal childhood stages and, other circumstances that came along with that, where she had behavioral issues and which would set off my number one trigger, which is anger. And it just become a very bad cycle for both of us. So in 2020, I decided that I needed to figure something out. I needed to go back and get help and find something. A lot of people started talking about EMDR and what it had done for them and stuff like that. So I happened to be on Facebook one day and I saw this advertisement for it was basically a veteran-led program in my area, but it was for law enforcement also. And they were doing an event at a horse stable near where I lived at. And my daughter loved horses. So I thought, you know what? This is my opportunity. I'm going to go down there and I'm going to talk to these people, but she'll be entertained because the horses, So I walked in there and I found the girl. I told her who I was and what I had been through. Because at this point, it was 11 years after my incident. So all that time, I had been dealing with this, and it was just progressively getting worse. And I basically sat there and I cried to the lady and I told her, I said, I need somebody to help me because I don't know how to get out of this. I don't know where to go next. And so she set me up with her clinician who started EMDR with me. Had about 5 sessions at the beginning of 2020 before COVID hit. And just in those 5 sessions, I went from about a quality of life of about 10%, even though I made it seem a little bit more than that because I was doing the whole mom thing and I'm pushing all my stuff back. No one really saw what was going on, to about 95%.
Wow.
In just 5 sessions. So yeah, and I'm still not done with the whole process. I've still got, what they have you do is they have you make a list of situations or things that have happened that are traumatic to you throughout your life. And you kind of go down that list and you start picking and choosing what you want to work on first to start reprocessing. And I still haven't gotten to my shooting yet in my list. So there was a lot of things that happened to me after the fact within the first year of my shooting that really kind of compiled a lot of things. I lost a very close friend of mine about 5 months later in a bombing in Afghanistan. Following April, I ended up getting a DUI. Lost my grandmother in that year, who I was very close with. So there was a lot of compounding traumatic incidents that had happened after my actual shooting. So I did the EMDR, and I also connected with a thin line group online after COVID hit. That is, it's a peer support group. It started off very much like an AA type program, but for law enforcement and firefighters who either have PTSD or are in recovery from drugs or alcohol. And that was pretty helpful initially. I think I actually connected with them before I did the EMDR. And that was helpful for me. I look forward at that time to every Thursday night where I could kind of feel normal again. You know what I mean? Like be with people who understood me and had been through a lot of same shit that I'd been through. And I was doing that. I did the EMDR. I ended up had connected with a former coworker who was out in Arizona, and her and I started kind of doing unofficial peer support stuff kind of with each other, kind of were that person to go to. But then we also started realizing that there was some issues that needed to be addressed as well within our kind of circle or our networks. I'm sure that you follow my social media and see a lot of the things that I post as far as the kind of on the advocacy side of normalizing PTSD and PTSD awareness and law enforcement suicide and stuff like that. When I started to get very active with that, I started to have a lot of people reach out to me coming out of the woodwork and saying, hey, I just, I appreciate that you're open enough to be able to talk about that, because I haven't found anybody that I can talk to. It's funny too, because I think back, and my very first peer support incident was 6 months after my shooting or so. I had one of the guys, while at work, he worked the area that I lived in, showed up at my house, and I was kind of perplexed as to why he was there. He just dropped by and asked if he could talk to me for a minute. And I said, of course. What's up? And he said, well, I just wanted to stop by and see how you were doing. It wasn't, he wanted to stop by and see how I was doing. He wanted to stop by because he wasn't doing well. He was a rookie officer and on scene when Wimberly was shot and killed. And immediately afterwards was told to go back and start handling calls. And that had kind of messed with him over the years. And I'd been very vocal about the changes that I felt in myself after my shooting and trying to get help from the agency and stuff like that. And I think he felt safe coming to me about that. So yeah, it just kind of snowballed into, I always felt like my purpose was to kind of use what I went through to help save somebody else's life. And it just kind of started happening. I started aligning myself with certain people in other parts of the country that had connections and to facilities and clinicians and other peer support stuff. And Lindsay and I kind of developed this little team where the connections that we had and people were coming to us left and right and saying, hey, I know what you're talking about. I've been going through this too. And, I've had people call me and ask me what's available for treatment. I need to go somewhere. And those people were able to get into one main facility that we've been using down in Florida, who we actually were up here doing this training with this week. So it's been good. It's been therapeutic for me also. We talk about that amongst each other, and a lot of people say, well, I'd like to do peer support, but I'm not at a good place myself right now. I can't, help somebody else with their problems. Well, if you wait to the point that you're in a good place, you'll never be able to help anybody, because there's always something that's going to trigger you, or you'll have a slight setback here, or, whatever the case may be. So yeah, anytime somebody says that, I said, no, now's the time. If you feel that that's calling on you now's the time.
Right.
So yeah, it was a little full circle moment coming back here and getting very deep into my story and actually talking about the shooting and the things that happened afterwards. And, I think a lot of people who knew me, a lot of things were explained for them. It was a little bit of an emotional situation,
Yeah.
so, but it was good.
Good. Yeah. You have come a long way from where I sit, not just now, but, being as far away as I was from you when you were out west, and then when you were back up north, total night and day difference between those times and seeing you today. I mean, you look healthy, you look well, and
I have activities that I do.
Do you now?
Hobbies.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is full circle. Well, if somebody wanted to reach out to you for help, or maybe not to you, but to somebody, is there somewhere that you would like to mention to send them in the right direction?
So I think the biggest thing to let people know is there's tons of programs out there. So, not necessarily like mentioning anything here locally, because I assume your audience is probably all over the place. But usually like FOPs will have some good information on where you can go to, or any type of police organization like that. A lot of them have their own helplines. Cop line is another one that if someone is feeling suicidal at the time, that they can call and get someone on the line to actually talk to that's completely anonymous. There's other things that are in the works here locally. I'm on social media. People can reach out to me directly and I can get them connected. If I have made enough connections of people who've been in the business long enough that I could probably connect someone pretty much anywhere in the country with services.
Okay. And in the show notes somewhere down in here, I'll have links for people, links that you provide, as well as maybe some that I know of as well. Any lasting, like, well, that's not the way I want to go with this. I was gonna say, anything you want to share for, not just call these people or these people can help, but any words of advice for maybe someone struggling right now watching this, or know somebody that's watching this?
So I think, first of all, being observant to behavioral changes. If you're the someone watching who knows someone, if you start picking up personality changes and behavioral changes and stuff like that, that's someone that you want to either reach out to or find help for. I think the biggest thing that for people to know is that you can be rock bottom. And at that moment, you're feeling like this is never going to get better. So why not just be done with it now? I'm here, having been there, to say that it does get better with the right resources, with the right therapies, with the right people surrounding you. You can go back to living a very normal, healthy, fulfilled life. It's not going to be easy. It wasn't easy getting where you got to.
Sure.
So it's a matter of having the will to survive, basically.
Is that a hashtag?
No.
Okay. I appreciate you taking time out of your whirlwind schedule, being back down home, if you will. Means a lot to have you on the show.
It was good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be seen, as they say. Folks, this has been episode number 19 of the Knock&Talk show. And again, I'm honored to have my friend here in the studio, not just virtually, but in the studio with us. And if you yourself are struggling or know somebody who's PTSD or TBI, or at least the cumulative trauma. If you or someone you know is not alone, and there is here for you to get started in your recovery. So, Lindsay, thank you. You guys be well, be safe, and we'll catch you next time.
The Knock&Talk Show is a certified veteran-hosted podcast. Show your support. Tune in, share, and subscribe.